Okay, so the last few videos I've been working on have all been scripted, and as much as I love doing deeper looks at topics I am interested in, I feel I need the freedom to just kind of talk about topics. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is and always will be my favorite show, but in light of everything that's come out recently, it almost feels impossible to talk about without doing 3 or 4 videos with context before I give my opinions. And in a way, it's almost become too difficult for me to talk about without making it too personal, which for me is a very bizarre thing to think about, given that at least 75% of my personality and channel history has been mocking parasocial relationships. But to say the show raised me would be an understatement. First time watching the show, I was probably around 2nd grade or so, and my family was about to move, so we had no television at the time, and my mom had all of the discs, so I would continuously rewatch season 1 because, well, my mom said season 2 wasn't appropriate. Honestly, for me being that age, I kinda do agree. However, nonetheless, it was still a very early age to be watching the show and building such an infatuation. When I finally did get to watch the rest of the seasons, it was such an exciting moment for me. Then, being about 4th or 5th grade, my mom would let me skip days of school to watch episodes with her. It was our version of a mommy-daughter day. We'd go out, get Starbucks, get a charcuterie board. But see, since she was such a big fan of both Buffy and Angel, she kind of did this in the perfect moments. So the day I'm thinking of in specific, we watched Fool for Love, and then subsequently the episode that follows of Angel. To say that this show is a bit ingrained in me at this point would be an understatement. I thought it was important to share my love for this show before getting into the topic at hand because it is so heavy. Season 6 of Buffy is the most divisive among fans. Many saying that it ruined the show, that it bastardized the ending that season 5's The Gift gave us, or just a general overall consensus that it's a little bit too dark for them. For the record, season 6 is probably my favorite season. In my eyes, it takes the characters at their most raw, their most gritty, their most realistic, and pushes them, but not only pushes them, but reflects a mirror directly back at them, which is actually something that the writers and the show have been doing for seasons. Take the reflection of the relationships between Buffy and Riley versus Tara and Willow. Hell, the show even does a hard cut in season 4 to show the comparison. After the events of Hush, after figuring out each other's secret identities, Buffy and Riley are both sat in a very awkward moment of silence, unable to actually have a discussion about what just happened. Not only does this tie into the themes of the episode, the obvious one being complete silence being forced upon them, but it sprinkles a bit of irony over the situation. Now they can talk, but are unable to, which is in stark contrast to what we see in the next scene. Tara and Willow having flawless communication, being able to finally get on each other's levels and have some understanding. Now, this is just one small example. Obviously, there are many others throughout this show. We are talking a total of 7 seasons here. Despite all of the negative attention and criticism season 6 has gotten, at the end of the day, despite it being my favorite, I can completely understand where people are coming from when they say they hate the season. But in actuality, for many people, they don't hate the entire season, they hate a specific episode. Now, if it wasn't obvious enough already, there will be spoilers in this video, but we need to talk about seeing red. You see the thumbnail for this video, you've seen the title, you know exactly what we are talking about today. And if you don't, and for whatever reason decided to click on this video, this is my warning now for not only sensitive topics, but also major spoilers. So I've seen a massive division between people and their opinions on this topic. Because not only does this episode leave you feeling disgusted with the character, with yourself for even liking the character, but it also raises many many questions for not only previous seasons, but the ones yet to come. Is this act even redeemable? Was this even in character? That last question is a complaint I see quite a lot. Many believe that by this point in the series, the actions that Spike took in seeing Red were so out of character that it just feels like bad writing. And that actually leads me to why I'm even making this video in the first place. I need to make one thing clear, and as clear as I can humanly make it. I believe that this scene right here is the most in-character Spike has been since season 3. And you might be confused what I even mean by that. So let's take a look back at season 3 into season 4. So it is well known at the end of season 3 of Buffy, Whedon went specifically to David Boreanaz to pitch the idea of Angel, the new spin-off show which would be on a different network. Fearing that they might not hold the same audience numbers as they did before with their previous series, they decided to also bring over another character with them to help integrate the audience into the new setting easier. The titular bitchular herself being Cordelia Chase. You see, Cordelia's role in the Scoobies so far had been to call out hypocrisy, reflect the characters back on themselves, bring a dry sense of sarcasm, but also a minor cold splash of reality sometimes.
God! What is your childhood trauma? Excuse me, I have to call everyone I have ever met right now.
To be frank, she was just that bitch. She would say it as she saw it, and in a way keep the group level-headed. So with her departure, the other network working on Buffy still was struggling to bring the same kind of energy back to the show. And that's when they get the brilliant idea to use Spike's character for it, which I believe was perfect, brought us some of the funniest episodes, and really allowed his character to not only grow but flourish. But it also puts the audience member in a kind of active mode of safety. And what I mean by that is, the nature of Spike's character in of itself is a cat and mouse game. Much like we saw the division between Angel and Angelus in season 2, we must not forget that Spike also has said divide. There is Spike, and then there's William. Now we know from context throughout the series and the generalized soul theory, that the demon you become is heavily influenced by who you were as a person, but more specifically, your last few moments alive.
That's me as a vampire? I'm so evil and skanky. And I think I'm kind of gay.
Well, just remember, a vampire's personality has nothing to do with the person it was.
Well, actually, it's a good point.
So, in many ways, Angelus and Spike are similar beasts, their differences being, well, as the judge so put it,
You.
Oh. What's that, mate?
You two stink of humanity. You share affection and jealousy.
Yeah? What of it?
Spike has a bit of humanity left in him, but at the end of the day, let's not forget that he is still a beast. The show in of itself plays with this dynamic, luring the viewer into a false sense of security. And this dynamic becomes amplified as they pseudo-neuter him in season 4, now making him truly harmless. But we have to remember, yes, he is chipped, but he still likes inflicting pain upon others. Yes, he is chipped, but can still manipulate the entire group into the big bad's favor. Yes, he is chipped, but he can sell eggs on the black market illegally. Yes, he is chipped, but he can still play kitten poker. At the end of the day, it is always important that we don't forget he still is a demon, despite being treated like a man, despite choosing to do some good. And actually, we might want to take a deeper look at said good. Yes, Spike helped Buffy save the world. Yes, Spike, after the events of seeing Red, proceeds to go and get his soul for her, to be a better person, to be the man she deserves. But those statements are all very telling, because they all boil down to one pinnacle. All of this is for Buffy, to obtain Buffy, to have Buffy. The exact same dynamic he had before with Drusilla. It's a pattern. You see, to be dead is to simply be stuck in purgatory with yourself. constantly having ever-looping moral dilemmas which you constantly fall back into. To be lacking a soul is to be lacking the allowance for growth. Having your inner id be all-encompassing. At the end of the day, no matter how heroic the actions may have looked, they were all done for selfish reasons. Maybe the so-called growth of the character, which we've all loved, hasn't been growth, but exploration. So this leads us exactly back to where we began. Was this in character? Anytime Buffy's let him down in the series, let him know that she's not interested, he's immediately had a negative reaction. Whether that's chaining her up in his basement, deciding to shoot her after she re-utters Cecily's words, but we have to remember that he's been slowly isolating her from her friends for a while now. The scene in the bronze, the quintessential game of playing will they won't they. Now I will admit he is not entirely responsible for all of that. Hell, even the narrative structure of the show kind of puts them in the world against us kind of dichotomy. Prime example, Buffy going to Spike after she had been ripped out of heaven, being able to relate to him, and not sharing any of this with her actual friends. This is all to say that this is not specifically Spike's fault, but he does sure take it to his advantage, playing on her weaknesses in those moments.
Stop me.
Feeding on her hurt. This has been a constant, not only in his relationship with Buffy, but in all of his relationships, period. Let's look back to season 3, Lover's Walk. Okay, so this section of the video, the files got deleted, corrupted, I can't find them, I don't know, I don't remember. Anyway, this episode is important for two major reasons. The plot follows Spike as he's, returning back to Sunnydale after losing Drusilla, constantly drunk, not emotionally handling it at all, but he decides to kidnap Willow and forces her to do a love spell for him, which, doesn't end up actually happening, but it's a fact that he asked her to do it. Going against, yet again, Drusilla's bodily autonomy, not caring what she wants for herself. Because, she's left his ass. However, yet again, the second thing is the end of the episode just concludes with him deciding to kidnap her and force her to love him. To be the abusive lover that she once was infatuated with. So this kind of is supposed to hammer in that point. Back to the video. His active violence towards his partners, and the obvious power dynamic he has over them, because whether or not we want to admit it, Drusilla is off her rocker a bit, and Harmony isn't necessarily Little Miss Strong-Willed. His choice to continually sexualize Buffy when she is clearly denied his advancements, kidnapping her like he once did Drusilla in an attempt to make her love him, or if she never did, inadvertently punish her, because in his eyes not loving him is warranting of punishment.
Oh! What the bleeding hell is wrong with you bloody women? What the hell does it take? Why do you bitches torture me?
Which question do you want me to answer first?
Such themes continued into season 5 of Buffy as we got the Buffy bot. She denied him, yet he still felt entitled to her body, or a like thereof, however, it's still extremely invasive. This is just another boundary crossed. Spike never changed, he was just prevented from doing what he wanted to do. Being chipped meant he wasn't able to hurt Buffy, but the moment he realized that she was no longer affected once being resurrected, the first thing he does is plan to attack her. And Spike's not dumb, he has numerous times been proven to be highly intelligent throughout the series. So one could assume he is well aware of the fact that the further he pushes Buffy into her depression, the more available she will become to him. And she's already struggling with the fact that she's back on Earth being stripped from heaven. So he is well aware of the fact that the concept of coming back incorrectly would be terrifying to her. Make her feel more hopeless than she already does.
How?
Don't you get it? Don't you see? You came back wrong.
And that now leads us to the first question that was posed. How does this character ever become redeemed? Which more irony intensifies given the fact that this is Angel's main premise. The TV show, not the person. Well, kinda both. And so obviously, there's only one answer to this. A demon cannot be redeemed, but a man can. Re-ensouling Spike, bringing back William, was the only way to redeem this character, was the only way to get sympathy for this character again. And now I'm gonna be brutally honest, season 7 was not the best. I honestly find it to be one of the hardest seasons to get through. Mostly because this is the most coherent season and it almost feels like a drawn out movie. Few episodes such as him taking you really out of it. But for the first time throughout every season so far, we finally get true, meaningful growth for Spike. Technically William, but they don't do it as black and white as they keep Angel and Angelus. Spike has to now live through everything that he caused, see the pain on Buffy's face when he interacts with her, live through the consequences of his actions. Despite having mixed emotions on Spike joining the cast of Angel, I am appreciative to have the episode that was Spike being misunderstood for this Slayer's abuser. It put him face to face and in the position of all of the trauma and harm he has caused. So that brings us down to the bottom line. Is it okay to like his character? James Marsters, the actor for Spike, has gone on record several times stating how hard it was to film Seeing Red, how it mentally destroyed and plagued him for a while afterwards, having to seek therapy, pulling him down to his deepest depression.
I can't watch scenes like that. I don't go to movies that have that in it. If a TV show is showing it, I have to shut it off or I go crazy. It's just, with my life, it's not something I want to watch. So when I got that script, I was just like, you can't make me do this. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And they're like, well, you are going to do it. You're contracted to do it. I remember passing Steve DeKnight, who he didn't come up with the story idea, but he actually wrote the script. And I was like, Steve, you do not realize what you are asking some of the actors to live through. You guys write this, but I have to live it. And the first shot, I have an old injury of a whiplash, and I was so tense, just coming through the door, that the whiplash popped off like a firecracker, and I just collapsed on the ground, and it went down from there. I was in the fetal position by the end, just shaking on the floor. So.
You see, James Marsters loved the character of Spike, still does. After the show was done, he even made comics for the character, which are now canon. As far as I know, I haven't read them yet. He does cameos often for fans, shows up to whatever conventions he can. I think it's safe to say, despite Seeing Red, he still loves the character. All of this is to say, liking a morally gray to morally corrupt character does not in of itself make you morally gray and corrupt. Many people resonated with Spike and came to love him throughout all of the seasons. And it's not for any of the reasons we discussed today. It was for his charm, his charisma, his screen presence, the journey to get to where his character inevitably ended up, his little marshmallow talks with Joyce, or those stupid ass goggles. He is a well-written, entertaining character. But I just don't think people are seeing his character in the show for what it really is. I know James Marsters went through a lot of hardships to bring us this character, and he was not okay morally with having to do said performance that day. But in a way, it was almost the best thing possible for this character. Audiences by that time had completely warmed up to him, forgetting the monster that lurked inside. Became too cozy. Now, I'm not saying I love the scene by any means, or that it couldn't have been done in a different way. However, it's not out of character. Bad people make these decisions every day. The scene in of itself was inspired by one of the writers' experience with an ex-boyfriend. Buffy and Spike's relationship was meant to be written as really toxic, but audiences just weren't understanding it. The writers realized they had to do something really low. Their only way to get audiences to see Spike in the way that they were wanting was to have an irredeemable action. But that truly is the beauty in the last season of Angel, and much of the Buffy comics. You see Spike in the last season of Angel, where Angel was in the first season. He is now finally on his path to redemption. That was going to be the end of the video, but the other day I actually watched this fantastic retrospective on season 6 of Buffy, and more specifically incel culture within season 6 of Buffy. So, of course, there's more to talk about. Because in many ways, seeing Red could also be seen as the pinnacle of that narrative as well. Almost as though the writers were trying to say that incels are not always the nerds that we see on our screens like Jonathan, Warren, and Andrew. Sometimes those closest to us hold those mindsets and hold those values whether or not we want to acknowledge it. Misogyny isn't inherently an incel trait. It is found in athletic, attractive, charismatic people. Which, I mean, yeah, no duh, anybody with half a brain could tell you as much. But as we previously discussed, this was a translation issue the writers were really struggling with between them and their audience. Many of their young fans at the time really idolizing Buffy and Spike's relationship, despite how he treated her and how he acted towards women as a whole. So yes, season 6 as a whole, storytelling-wise, is the story of misogyny and all of that good stuff wrapped up in an incel blanket. But if we're looking at all of the previous character actions throughout the entirety of the show, whoever said Spike was excluded from that conversation? I just wanted to point it out because it really does loop back around thematically in a very beautiful way, almost like the bow on a present. Granted, seeing Red as an episode is not a bow by any means, and it is guilty of the trope of killing off gay characters for another's character development. But I guess to wrap it up, can we stop hating and blaming Marty and Oxen for this season? It's not that bad, people. Maybe y'all need to rewatch it with the lens of 2025 in mind, because honestly, like the video I was watching the other day, which yet again is linked in my description, said, it is definitely ahead of its time, and I think that this season needs to be talked about now more than ever. And in fact, I want to take this one step further even, by comparing the inner desires of Spike with a soul without a soul to the trios. Since his first appearance in the show Buffy, Jonathan as a character has always struggled in many departments. Fitting in, getting any type of acceptance, making friends, but most importantly, the part that gets harped on the absolute most, and the one thing he truly does have in common with the rest of the trio is their inability to form relationships, real substantial relationships. In one way or another, all three of these boys feel slighted by the world, believing women don't want them presumably because of their interests, because of their looks, because of the stereotypical idea that women only want a certain type of man. And especially over the last few decades, society has kind of learned that that's not true at all. I mean, hell, if that was the case, none of these guys that are spending 13 hours plus a day on Elden Ring would be pulling goth baddies. It's this overwhelming feeling of being slighted, being given the short end of the stick, which really ties together all four of these characters, Jonathan, Warren, Andrew, and Spike. We see not only in Fool for Love, but other episodes, that a lot, if not most of Spike's hostility comes from being rejected. Much like Warren with the help of the trio whenever they brainwash Amber, neither can take no for an answer. However, since I don't want to just end this video on a sour note, and I do love Spike's character, I think that he is one of the best written characters in all of fiction, or at the very least one of the most complexly written characters. So let's actually take a closer look at what makes him different than Warren, somebody who the show overall deemed as unredeemable, remorse. Without a soul, Spike isn't truly capable of that action. Even after seeing Red when he is talking to Clem in his crypt, Spike is angry, spiteful, and wanting revenge, much like Warren was whenever he went into Buffy's backyard that day. The massive dividing line being, Warren has a soul, and thus all of the actions he has taken have been with his soul. He at his core is tainted.
Last thought I killed a family. And I'm supposed to what? Complain? Because hers wasn't one of the hundreds of families I did kill. I'm not saying you're right. Because, I'm physically incapable of saying that. But, for a demon, I never did think that much about the nature of evil. Just threw myself in. Thought it was a party. I liked the rush. I liked the crunch. Never did look back at the victims.
Now, I do want to clarify, I am of the crowd that believes that Spike did not intentionally re-ensoul himself. That it was not necessarily his choice, but his choice of words which granted him the soul. Recording a while ago, but I just started editing, and as I'm finishing, I did not include anything about season 7. So I even will go to say that, like, his contributions, you know, with his mother trying to convert her and then having her turn against him, that's another layer adding to the misogyny, because there's going to be some built up resentment and hatement through there. Mommy issues, if you get me, you're following, you're catching my drift. Oh gosh, that was so southern. But anyway, then not to mention his actual death itself being a sexual relation. So his turn to vampirism in of itself was like an ecstasy kind of thing, like a bubbling. That sounds gross. You know, maybe this wasn't needed. Anyway. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you would like to see another unscripted, just kind of talk on a series video again, let me know. Because I mean, I had a lot of fun doing this, and I could definitely do this more with this series in particular. I have a lot of opinions. I'm also trying to work my way right now rereading the comics, so there will be videos on those. But I just wanted to state some more opinions at the end of this video. I do like Spike as a character. I'd say probably in Buffy's show, he's probably my favorite. Not my favorite overall in the entire verse, don't get me wrong. But I think he has the best chemistry and dynamics with everybody in the cast. So this by no means was meant to slander his character. It was just to shine some light on some fans that tend to forget some of his toxic sides. Well, see you grandkids in the next one.